with Chris, so I knew Chris as my roommate. I knew Chris as he wrote in his book, which was really nice and hard for me to not get emotional that he was the brother I never had. That was really cool. But to do this, when you got to introduce an author, you got to do research about the author. Now, what a lot of you might not know is that this is the second book Chris ever published. And I have the first one. This is a book called How I Met My Imaginary Friend by Dalla Riva. To read about the author really quick. There he is, if you can see. Yeah, adorable. This book was written and illustrated by Dalla Riva, age 8. Chris lives in West Caldwell, New Jersey, and attends Jefferson School. For fun, Chris likes baseball, soccer, and playing video games. Now, no mention of music, but artists learn and they adapt. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'd like to read a quick excerpt, Chris, if that's okay. I will show the pictures. Once upon a time, I was walking down the street and something amazing happened to me. You could see him doing that very clearly here. I took my hands off my eyes. It's crazy you were walking with your hands on your eyes. And I saw a spaceship and a weird thing came out of it. I said to the thing, "What are you?" He said, "I'm Milton, your imaginary friend." And he said, "Oh, now that's all I'm going to read, but..." I did read the whole thing, which for a lot of you that know me, that's very shocking. I haven't read a book since high school. And it was interesting because I know it's written by Chris at age 8, but if you really think about the journey Chris has gone on to actually write this book, it's kind of similar and crazy that you wrote in age 8 what I think became you as an adult and as an artist. It's really cool to see where Chris has gotten with this whole thing. I mean, I remember the day Chris came to me and said, "I'm going to listen to every #1 hit ever." And when Chris says it, you know he's going to do it. You just don't know to the extent in which he's going to take it. And I don't think anybody in the beginning thought it was going to result in a room of 100 people with 100,000 followers on TikTok and a whole lot more to go. So please clap it up for Chris. One more thing I want to say. One more thing. I'm not done yet. We've done a lot of things together, as you call them, quote, internet schemes. And it's really cool to be a part of this. I'm really proud of you, and I love you, and this is really exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, Dalla Riva.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Don't know who I am or you don't know what that book is, you're certainly in the wrong place, but you should not leave because we're going to have a great time. But I wanted to open today with a question. What do you do when you're sad? Now, you see, this seems like a strange question to open up a book launch with, especially when I just said we're going to have a great time. But it's an important question. What do you do when you're sad? It's a very human question. It's something you probably thought about at some point. What do you do when you're sad? Some people say just to wait it out, but if you're impatient, you've got options. You talk to a priest or a therapist. That's pretty popular. Exercise, that's supposed to help. Socialization. Sunlight, I've heard that's good. Pills, either prescribed or unprescribed, though the unprescribed will do more damage in the long run. What do you do when you're sad? You see, this question was banging around in my brain a lot in 2018 because there was this deep, anxious sadness gurgling and crackling through my veins that I could just not get to go away. And I think a good illustration of this is one night I called my mother at 3 a.m. and I want to act it out. "Hi, Chris, why are you calling me at 3 a.m? "I'm having a stroke." I don't think you're having a stroke. No, I am. The whole left side of my body is numb. I'm having a stroke. If you were having a stroke, how would we be having this conversation? Touche, Mom, touche. And some people just came in. You can come sit down. You're not going to interrupt. But no, I was not having a stroke. I was not having a stroke. But when I woke up the next day from this faux stroke, I realized I really had to get a hold of my life. So what do you do when you're sad? The problem really was that there was nothing externally wrong with my life. I had a loving family who was willing to answer my phone calls at 3 in the morning. I just graduated from college. I was living with my buddies. I had an active social life, proof of the social life there. The other stuff I made up though. No, I'm kidding. But somewhere along the way, someone suggested to me that I needed something to do every day, a little task that could center my life, but would also make me feel like I was winning, and I like winning. So I started trying to come up with ideas, the first of which was, I'm gonna walk around the block every day. This is a pretty lame thing to do, so I quickly threw that out, especially when I remembered I lived outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and the winters get very cold. Second, I thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna read the dictionary. One entry each day. This is actually probably the lamest thing you could possibly do. And I think it illustrates where my mental space was at the time. But also, if you ever see someone who is reading the dictionary and not specifically looking up a word, please call for help. But then I was struck by an even better idea. I would listen to every song to ever get to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Billboard Hot 100 is Billboard magazine's music chart. It was started in August 1958, and it still exists to this day. I like music, I like history, I like writing songs, so I thought, I could do this. So I got home from work that day, I sat down, I looked up what the first #1 song was, and I clicked play.
I used to play around the parks, hasten in my car. But when I met that little girl, I knew that I would fall. Poor little fool. Oh yeah, I was a fool.
That is Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson, the first song to ever get to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 during the week of August 4th, 1958. And it sounds like an old song. You don't frequently hear acoustic ditties getting to the top of the pops these days. But there was also something that felt very contemporary about this song. Poor little fool, oh well, I was a fool in love. This is a song about lost love, maybe the most common lyrical topic of all time, up through this day. But also Ricky Nelson himself struck me as a very contemporary figure. Nelson got his start as a child actor on his family sitcom, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Many contemporary pop stars actually get their start on television. Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter, Ariana Grande, Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez. So there was tension in Poor Little Fool. It felt very old, but it felt very new at the same time. So I was smitten with this task. I knew I had to keep going. So every day I'd come home from work, I'd sit down, I'd look up the song, I'd click play and listen. I got about 20 songs in, and I was telling my friend Vinny about this, and he was like, "Oh, can I do that with you?" And it's nice to, misery loves company, as they say. So I of course obliged. He also has a great musical mind. So every day I'd come home from work, I would text a song to him. We would both listen, we'd chat about the song, and we'd rate it out of 10. I'll give you an example here. Runaround Sue by Dion. I rated this an 8 out of 10. Vinny also gave it an 8 out of 10. But we weren't always in agreement, like Believe by Cher.
Strong enough now. Do you believe in life after love?
I gave this a 9 out of 10, and I stand by that. He gave it a 3 out of 10. I still haven't forgiven him for that, but that was really an outlier. I mean, for the most part, we were generally in agreement on these songs, so I thought it would be fun to invite other people to rate songs for stretches of like 20 to 25 songs. Like Let's Dance by David Bowie.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
My dad gave that a 9 out of 10. Who's that girl? Madonna. My friend Monica gave that a 3 out of 10. Very critical. For all my American Idol fans out there, Bad Day, Daniel Powder. My friend Liliana gave that a 6 out of 10. And Royals by Lorde.
Love affair and we'll never be royals.
John Franklin, the man that opened this, he gave that a 10 out of 10. He's a man of great taste. So I started logging all these ratings in a spreadsheet, but because I'm sort of a data nerd, I started tracking other facts and figures about these songs, like how often was a number one hit by a British artist, or how often was there a curse word in a number one song? That's a fun one. Or how often was there a key change in a number one song? And slowly, even though I'd never published a word of writing before, I felt compelled to start writing about these trends that I was observing. But also slowly, I realized that this ubiquitous sadness that was in my body slowly started to leave. Why? Well, actually the act of listening to a song every day did give me something to look forward to. There was a lot of truth in that. But at the same time, I was roping so many friends into this listening journey. Of course, I had the people rating songs, but every time I would write something, I would send it off to friends and ask for feedback. And like this graphic here, and the other graphics, my friend Kaylee Nerney made them. Here's the two of us sharing a beer. Here's also her at her favorite restaurant, the Rainforest Cafe. And here's her DJing down at Reef and Barrel at the Jersey Shore. So, yes, this was a musical journey, but it was really a journey about finding meaning through social connections. So, again, I pose the question, what do you do when you're sad? Maybe you should spend years listening to every song to ever top the Billboard Hot 100, slowly rope all your friends into it, write about that journey, and then spend even more years trying to get the things you wrote published. And if that doesn't work, you should just go see a therapist. Thank you. The book. I want to invite my friend Walt Hickey up here to talk about the book itself, what was going on in there. Walt and I met in 2019 because he wrote this article for the website 538, and I sent him an email. I was like, hey man, where'd you get the data for this? Which, I'm sure you don't get emails like that a lot. So he just sent me his phone number. We got on the phone. He told me where he got it, and then we became friendly. Walt's had an incredible career. He worked at Business Insider, where he won a Pulitzer Prize. He wrote a book called You Are What You Watch, How Movies and Television Affect Everything, which is like a cousin to my book, in that it's about television, movies, and data. And now he's an executive editor at Sherwood News. So, Walt Hickey, why don't you come up here and we'll chat about the book.
All right. And let's just get another big round of applause.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that this book is out. I'm very, very happy for you. It's phenomenal. You should be so proud of it. I hope everybody here's bought it, and if not, get on your phone right now, buy it now.
Yeah, get to that.
You need a call to action. I want to talk about, I was going to ask you about how it feels to make your debut, but it appears that I have been scooped on that, and you have already made it. I guess, how does it feel to finally get this thing out?
I mean, as I was talking about here, and John mentioned, I've been working on this for so many years that it still sort of feels fake that it's out, because I just spent years and years doing this. I mean, I was living in Boston when I started this. It was before COVID. I mean, it literally feels like a whole lifetime ago. And then the fact that I ended up getting it published because some random guy saw a TikTok that I made, it was all quite serendipitous. Pluck and luck, as they say.
The book is really interesting, not just because it's about the history of music, but because it is kind of a history of a lot of other things as well. Like, things don't hit the top of the charts just because they are the best song. There are different technologies that come and go, different styles of music that come and go. What are some of the through lines in the book, whether it's just the different ways people consume music or how they spread it, that you really kind of came to appreciate as what drives things to the charts?
Yeah, there's this idea, I think it's one of the key themes in the book, that musical evolution is often downstream of technological innovation. And like a good example of this is the microphone. Like you can all hear me right now, but, and this will sound like so obvious it's not even worth stating, before the microphone, if you wanted to be heard, you had to scream. So once the microphone comes around, people can start singing in different styles. If you listen to records from like 100 years ago, it's people with these booming voices. But then in the 1940s, as microphones improve, amplification improves, you get like the soft croon of Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby. And of course that was an artistic choice on their part, but also the reason they could make that choice was because someone invented a better microphone. And you see this constantly throughout the ages, is that technology changes and then artists are influenced by that technology and it affects their art.
I'm surprised that somebody mentioned Frank Sinatra on a stage in Hoboken and that got no pop. do you know where you are? The technology element's amazing. A lot of it's also just the even like the labor relations stuff. You write about a strike that is kind of the reason why we have lead singers in bands.
Yeah, this is another interesting thing that's also wrapped up in this whole microphone drama, is that when you think of a band today, or think of any popular artist, it's almost certain that they are a singer. But this did not used to be the case. Like if you look back in the 1940s at who were the most popular artists, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, these guys did not sing. They were like, Glenn Miller was a trombone player. It was like, imagine if Ariana Grande was a trombone player. It's sort of comical to think about, but lead singers were in the background for a long time. And then during World War II, there was a musician strike, which seems crazy, but all musicians decided we're not going to record music anymore until we get better royalties. And this was during World War II, so it was really controversial. It went on for 2 years, and the labels backlogged all these recordings. But there was a weird loophole where singers couldn't join the unions, so labels started just releasing a cappella renditions of songs. And by the time the strike ends, suddenly, this isn't the only contributor, but by the time the strike ends, lead singers are at the front of the stage rather than just like a prop at the back. And that's the world we still live in today.
It's really fun. Again, one thing that I really dug about the book is that it is just kind of a way, like, the things that hit the top of the charts are not necessarily what we always conceive of when we close our eyes and imagine the 60s or close our eyes and imagine the 70s. There's a lot of weird stuff that hits the top of the charts. What are some that kind of come to mind? What's one of the weirder things that you've listened to? What was most popular that has no cultural footprint left anymore today?
Yeah, good question. Lots of weird stuff. I mean, you're thinking these are songs, you just have to be the most popular in a single week. So you get a lot of weird stuff over the last 65 years. In the 60s, there was a song called The Ballad of the Green Berets, which was just about, celebrating the military, which a couple years later, as the Vietnam War became really controversial. It's like, how was this song ever popular? In the 70s, there was a song called The Streak, which was about running around naked. That is very hard to believe that was popular. There's lots of weird novelty songs. I'm sure many people in this room remember the Macarena's 14-week reign at the top of the charts.
That was a very strange time in our lives.
The Macarena was actually so popular that they danced it at the 1996 Democratic National Convention. You can look up a clip of Hillary Clinton doing the Macarena, which is...
But it worked, right?
Yeah, I guess they won. So, so in every generation has their share of great art and their share of art we're very happy we've forgotten.
Yeah, I remember you wrote a little bit about the history of the twist, how twists were just a thing that people did for a little while.
Yeah, the twist obviously is the one song, Chubby Checker, Come On Baby, Let's Do It. But when that became popular, everyone else just released their own twists. Like Frank Sinatra has a song called Everybody's Twistin', the Beatles have Twist and Shout, the Marvelettes had a song called Twistin' Postman. Basically everyone was like, oh, this is popular, we should all release a twist.
I really enjoyed kind of the chance to survey these different eras and kind of the footprint that they left. Like, you wrote a bit about disco, how it was controversial at the time, some stuff has held up better, but very similarly, like, a lot of artists just cut a disco track. Like, there was a very popular movie insisted that their soundtrack be adapted into disco, some artists that maybe we don't necessarily expect.
There are... Disco is strange in that everyone decided to release a disco song. Again, we keep going back to Frank Sinatra. He must be in the air. But there is a disco version of Night and Day by Frank Sinatra, which you can look up and it's horrendous. There's disco. They would release disco versions of basically every television theme song. SWAT, I Love Lucy got a disco rendition. The Star Wars theme song got a disco rendition. The Rocky theme song. It would be like if polka music became really popular and then every artist on earth was like, we have to release polka music, polka versions of every television theme song that's in existence. So then, people got tired of disco at a certain point because of that, but it was a wild ride from what I could tell.
Yeah, no, it's really kind of fun just to see, again, like, what doesn't make the charts, right? Like, there are lots of iconic artists that never got a number one. There's lots of artists that got a lot of number ones that maybe have not a lot of relevance today. Any come to mind?
Yeah, I joke with people sometimes that if you look at just number one hits, the best classic rock band of the 1970s was Three Dog Night because they had 3 #1 hits. If you don't know about classic rock, then Three Dog Night is not a band you really hear in the classic rock conversation. But they had a lot of #1 hits in the 70s, but a band that really has stood the test of time, like Led Zeppelin, never topped the charts. There are tons of really famous artists that never got a #1. Bruce Springsteen, another Jersey man, is a good example. He wrote a #1 hit. This band called Manfred Mann's Earth Band got to #1 with a cover of Bruce's song Blinded by the Light. But Bruce himself only got to #2, Dancing in the Dark, got to #2, got stuck sadly behind When Doves Cry by Prince, which is a good example of like, oh, why didn't this artist have a #1 hit? It's like, well, Prince also happened to release his most popular album at the same time you released your most popular album. So there's a lot of just dumb luck in what gets popular and what doesn't.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about some of the charts from the book because they are really, really good. You had a few up earlier. Yeah, give a book.
Shout out Kaylee, thank you for
I
the
got a
graphic.
little bit more wooing from this round. So what were some of the favorite charts that you got a chance to work on? Are there any charts in particular that just kind of made your jaw drop after you made them?
Oh, lots. Every time Kaylee would send me a chart, my jaw would hit the floor. Some of my favorite stuff, I mean, I don't have them all here. Well, I guess I have some of them. We could go back. Oh, there's Kaylee again.
This one's a banger.
This is the most viral I've ever gone on the internet was because of this chart where you see key changes. And I remember I wrote an article about this and I thought it was sort of esoteric. And then everyone got really angry about it. I ended up going on NPR to talk about how it wasn't a bad thing. But this is a pretty shocking chart because it just illustrates how making music has changed so fundamentally. This is also a fun one because I don't really curse, so there's a whole discursion in the book about the history of cursing in pop songs. So you can see all of your favorite bad words when they first came up, and then in the 90s we got very explicit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long between the 70s when the first damn gets uttered and then some rowdy stuff in the 1990s now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about another extinction chart, not unlike this one, about covers and how
Yes.
covers have evaporated.
Yeah, this is really an interesting idea. Is back in the 60s, even the 50s, 60s, 70s, if there was a popular song, tons of other artists would release the same version of the song. In the book, I joke, this would be like if when Snoop Dogg released Drop It Like It's Hot, in the same week Eminem was like, I'm going to record the exact same song. That doesn't happen anymore, but back then it was super, super common to make your name just covering other people's music. And that's something we don't really see anymore. And the thing that I connected to is, again, if you go back really far, before recordings, every song was a cover song. If you wanted to hear Oh Susanna, you had to get Aunt Ginny to start playing it on the piano in the 1800s. But now we carry in our pockets like every recording in the history of music. So you don't have to rely on someone else performing the song. If I want to hear Harry Styles sing As It Was, I can just click it. I don't need to ask my cousin John to sing a rendition of the song for me.
And John's going to come up now to sing a song. But I want to go back to some of that kind of core idea that you got at how this is kind of accidentally a history of technology in the recording industry. You talked a little bit about the microphone, obviously already.
Check.
But the distribution has evolved very significantly. Not just for songs have always kind of been only able to be listened to because of how they're distributed. How has that changed what songs are and look like?
Yeah, this is a fascinating question. If you look at the length of popular songs, in like the 50s and 60s, they're usually about 2.5 to 3 minutes. But now, over the decades, popular songs got longer. For decades, they were around 4 minutes. Why? Well, it's just because vinyl records used to only be able to hold like 2.5 to 3 minutes of sound before the sound would degrade. So naturally, artists would have to make songs that fit those formats. And again, this is not something it sort of seems backwards. When you think about how art works, usually you think about someone who is inspired and they just create something. But in reality, you're creating within the constraints of particular technology. So as vinyl gets better, you can have longer pop songs like Hey Jude or Like a Rolling Stone. Then the single sits around again 4 minutes for decades, but over the last decade, it started to shrink again in length. Why? It usually comes back to music streaming. The financial model of streaming makes it so that shorter songs can make you more money. So again, artists have responded to this and popular songs have become shorter. But there's a lot of weird stuff with the way streaming works. In the later chapter in the book, I show that song titles have actually gotten shorter. And I speculate the reason for this is that people just want, again, I'll take it on my phone, they want their song title to be visible on a little tiny screen, whereas decades ago, if you sold a piece of vinyl, you could write your title across the whole thing. And we see this just again and again with how technology shapes the artistic decisions that we made. Again, I'll go back really, really far, back to the 1800s. You all remember, our 1890s kids, stand up. No, before recording, again, songs could be longer because it was just music was just notated on a piece of music. So there's a very famous composer named John Philip Sousa who he sings like marches, like the Stars and Stripes Forever. And he talks about how before recordings, songs used to have like 7 or 8 verses. And then once recording was invented, he was like, yeah, now people only do like 2 or 3 verses because they just could not fit any more music. We don't have that problem anymore. You could record your 8-hour epic. I mean, no one will listen to it, but you're allowed to.
You also wrote a little bit about how this doesn't always work out entirely in logical ways. How when MTV came on the scene, for some reason that immediately privileged a bunch of strange British synth artists.
Yeah, this is weird. If you watched MTV in the early days, there were a lot of British artists. A Flock of Seagulls, I'm going to, of course, forget all of them. Culture Club. Lots of British artists. Duran Duran, U2. They were getting videos in heavy rotation on MTV, and when they asked the original head of MTV why he was playing so many British artists on an American cable channel, he was like, well, for some reason British people just made more videos, so we just started playing all of these videos on loop. And because of that, Duran Duran and a Culture Club, they become really, really popular just because of the chance that British people, for some reason, were more into music videos before their American counterparts. Then the Americans catch up, but it's sort of a weird quirk that part of the reason these groups are popular was just that they happened to make videos in the 70s, even though there was nowhere to show them.
Yeah, that's the best. Like, where would you put a music video if it wasn't MTV?
Yeah, I mean, there are some variety shows you might catch a music video on. I mean, even when you think about music and television these days, something like Saturday Night Live is a vestige of that era where you still get music on it. It's usually not a music video, but theoretically, you could show a video of an artist rather than playing live.
Yeah, you wrote, there's always these eras where different places have different levels of success. Part of that is obviously which genres get more successful. Britain is a great example of a country that has kind of ridden and fallen over a couple waves. What are some examples from the book, or just kind of from the history of it, of just like, trends that happened that you think are just really because of how the technology happened, or really because of how the distribution happened, or even just like, a couple specific individuals who tried to push one?
Yes, it's a great question. In 2010, 2012, I don't remember the exact year, there was a song called The Harlem Shake that got very popular. Which, if you've ever listened to the Harlem Shake, which I'm guessing most people have not listened all the way through the Harlem Shake, but you've probably heard parts of it, it's a very weird song. There's a lot of bleeps and bloops and, buzzsaw sounds.
You need a demo?
Yeah, John, get up here. But the Harlem Shake became popular because YouTube started to become popular at that time, and a YouTuber who was pretty popular named Filthy Frank, he decided to make a video where the Harlem Shake is playing, and then it goes, do the Harlem Shake, and then everyone just starts flailing their limbs. Everyone started trying to do this. I went to Boston College, and they recorded a version of this in the one library they were supposed to be quiet in. Lots of professional sports teams did it. So Bauer got a #1 hit because that was the first week that Billboard just started counting YouTube streams, and there just happened to be this one very popular trend. And we see this again and again throughout the 2010s. There was a song called Black Beatles by Ray Shremmerd. I've never said that out loud, so I'm not sure if that's... And there was a thing called the Mannequin Challenge, which maybe you remember, where this song would play and people would just stand really still as the camera would go by. And same thing, it was just an online meme, and the song became popular because of that. And that's really the story of the 2010s. It's a lot of memes becoming songs, and we're supposed to keep listening to them.
But, that's also, a thing that I really love about the book is it just kind of shows you how much this stuff rhymes. Like, there have always been meme songs, right? Like, they made the Ballad of the Green Berets because enough Green Berets would stream it, or they'd be mad enough at hippies to play it.
Yeah.
That, like, there were always songs that they wanted just to kind of get in there. Lots of novelty songs made the charts. Like, it has always kind of been a play for popularity. How do you kind of, look at the history of music and contrast it with the history of music as represented at the top of the charts?
Yeah, there is. I like to tell people there is music, and then there is the music business. And there have been bands over the years that people ragged on because, like, oh, they're not making real music; it's too commercial.
Name names.
The Monkees are always the quintessential example because they were put together for a television show. But the thing was, the Monkees sang some bangers, like "I'm a Believer," "Last Train to Clarksville." These are great songs, but clearly they were made to just try to sell 1 million copies. And the record business works the same way these days. And I always find it partially strange when people get mad. It's like, oh, he's just doing that to sell a lot of records. It's like, well, welcome to the last 100 years in America. I'm not sure what to tell you.
Yeah, you wrote a little bit about the Beatles and how they kind of... Sorry. The Beatles are a very popular band, but you wrote about them and how they did kind of change some of that by kind of dragging authenticity into the mix. They wrote their own songs, and that is more of an exception historically, right?
Yeah, if you want to use economic terms, everything was differentiated really before the 1960s, where there would be usually a guy, there would be a guy who wrote a song, and there would be a guy that sang the song, and there would be someone who recorded it, there would be someone else who mastered it. It was all different levels with different people. The Beatles sort of vertically integrated this whole process where they were like, we're going to be a single creative unit. We were going to write our own songs, we're going to perform them. They didn't produce them, but they were involved. And after that point, you start to see that artists are only taken seriously, quote unquote, if they write their own music. And this is still important to this day. I mean, it's the reason why you hear Taylor Swift all the time talking about why she writes her own songs, because people take you more seriously if you compose your own music. But again, historically, that's weird. It's like our friend Frank Sinatra. He didn't compose any of his. Frank Sinatra didn't write a note of music that he sang. But no one is saying like, oh, "Strangers in the Night" or "My Way" or "New York, New York" shouldn't be taken seriously because he wasn't the composer. But because the Beatles were so popular and had such an influence, most of the time we only think of artists as serious if they're like the one sitting with a guitar at the piano and composing their work. It's something that when you see it, it like really infects how people think about music.
All right, so as we kind of wind down a bit, I do want to do a little bit of lightning round, best, worst, what have you, right? What is the best song that has ever made it to number one on the Billboard Hot 100?
I guess I'll give you a couple.
I'll restate the question.
My go-to joke is that I don't know what the best one is, but it was probably written by someone in Detroit or someone from Sweden, because Motown was in Detroit and they wrote a lot of great songs. And there's a lot of these Swedish masters that live, well, in Sweden. Max Martin is the most famous, but him and all of his compatriots, they wrote everything for Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, a lot of stuff for Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, co-write, because she writes her own stuff.
ABBA?
Yes, ABBA, also Blue Swede. Yeah, Hooked on a Feeling.
We've hit the let's remember some guys portion of the evening. Let's get back on track.
Yes, sorry. My favorite, what I think is the best number one hit is "I Want You Back" by the Jackson 5, which is it's a Motown song. If you think that's a silly pop song, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For by U2 hit the top of the charts. That's a pretty spectacular record. Those two always come to mind, but there's lots of great songs at the top.
How about the worst?
Oh man, I really hate "Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini." That song, "The Streak," we talked about earlier, it's silly. What are you gonna do? But how serious could a song about running around naked be? Which really, my mother told me, it was a trend in the 70s. There was a streaker at the Oscars at some point in the 70s. And not to just hate on all older songs, there was a song a couple years ago by an artist of the name 6ix9ine. He has a song called "Trolls." You're probably not familiar with it. It got to number one because he just got out of jail for some pretty horrendous crimes, and people wanted to listen to what he was recording. It's one of the worst songs you'll ever hear. He just sort of screams throughout the whole thing. I recommend checking it out, though. Suffer with me.
You listened to it, being an end. What was the sloggiest portion of it? Like, what decade, what couple years? Was it just kind of a bit of a grind?
Yeah, my friend Vinny, who listened to all the songs with me, him and I would always talk about how there was this period from the late 80s to the early 90s where there's a lot of good music in that time, but it was not getting to the top of the charts. It was like the tail end of hair metal. There were all these really slow R&B ballads. Hip-hop hadn't really come into full form yet, so there's like Paula Abdul songs with really cheesy rap verses. But it's sort of a transitional period. By the time you get to the early 90s, you get alternative rock, hip-hop goes mainstream, country music becomes really popular again. But right in that little period, if you want to listen to good music from that era, look beyond the number one hits, unless you're a huge Paula Abdul fan.
And then the flip side of that, what era that was breezy, really fun to listen to, every song's a banger in a row.
I hate to give the 1960s any more credit than it already gets, but from like 64 to 69, you have the Beatles are firing on all cylinders, Motown, the Beach Boys, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones. It's pretty crazy. And even artists who were not as popular as them, but had a couple hits in there. Roy Orbison comes to mind. It's just like putting out the best work you've ever heard, and it's all happening one week after another. But there is good stuff in every period, not to discriminate.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer. The correct answer is when I was 17.
Yeah.
That's the best answer.
Closer by the Chainsmokers.
That's pretty good. So just to kind of wrap it up, I guess you've come to this kind of end of this journey, this publication. What are you most proud of about the project?
I'm proud that it's out. I really. I have no shame about sending cold emails. That's how Walt and I know each other. Really, we became friends in a different world. I remember I was standing in the NJ Transit bus terminal where he called me and he was like, "So this is how you get the data from my heart radio." But yeah, it was. I mean, I've sent hundreds and hundreds of emails. I last counted when I was trying to promote this book over the last couple of months. I've cold emailed 700 people. And most don't respond, but I just learned. The thing I think I most learned was that if you shout into the void long enough, someone might be listening, and that's eventually what happened. I posted a TikTok that did pretty well, and this guy who wrote for Billboard magazine named Fred Bronson, he saw it, he sent me an email, he ended up connecting me with an editor, and this was 7 years into me trying to get someone to publish this book, so it still feels like an absolute miracle, and I'm glad I was shouting and someone was listening. Yes, the book, well, it's called Uncharted Territory, where numbers tell us what the biggest hit songs in ourselves. It's available. It should be available everywhere. There were a lot of people bought them, so I'm thankful for that. But it's still available on Amazon right now. You should be able to get it. Jeff Bezos will get it to your door very, very quickly. Yeah, and you can find me online basically anywhere. I'm a really easy guy to find. Chris Dalla Riva. I'm C. Dalla Riva Music on most platforms.
Can't Get Much Higher is a real treat.
Yes, Can't Get Much Higher is my newsletter. Walt also has a great newsletter, Numlock News.
We're not plugging that now.
No.
Buy the book. It's available in stores.
Yes, buy the book. Buy the book.
Before we wrap it up and give one last big round of applause, we are going to a beer garden around the corner. Is that right?
Yes, I'll be out down in the lobby for a little bit after if you want to say hello, but we have a room at the beer garden around the corner. You should definitely come, say hello, grab a pint. Before that, I do want to say thank you to a couple people. And I wanted to do most of this off the dome, but I figure I should have written this down so I don't forget anyone. The nice part about writing a book is that they allow you to write pages and pages of acknowledgments where you can thank everybody and their mothers and my mother. So I'm only thanking people who are really directly involved with the book specifically in this event right now. And if you could go check the book if I thank you, and then you could come be angry at me. But yeah, thank you to Mile Square Theater for having us, and Kevin Reese up in the booth. That man deserves an applause. Walt and John, thank you for helping out today. Vinny Christopher, who's here, for listening to all these songs with me. Thank you for listening to the late 80s with me. That was really difficult. A couple people who read the book in full before it came out. Kaylee LaParrot, Devin Portilla, Bob Dalla Riva, and Walt, and Matt Meehan and Andrew Goodman. Thank you. Evan Raftis, my sister's boyfriend, he took some photos for the book and he's videotaping tonight, so I hope he did a good job.
I hope so.
And two more. Kaylee Nerney, we gave her a round of applause, but one more time, she did all the graphics for the book. And I'm super grateful for that. We have a very tumultuous relationship, so actually just to really talk about how nice Kaylee was about this. She got married, first of all, on my birthday, no less. And I had to submit the last draft of the book right after that, and she was going on her honeymoon. So I had to ask her, I was like, can you just bring a computer just in case we have to do it? Now, she was not happy when I initially brought this up, but she brought the computer. We had no issues, but thank you for that, Kaylee. Sorry for almost ruining your honeymoon. And finally, my family, my mom, dad, Natalie, Emily, and Devin, for supporting all my crazy interest in taking these weird things that I like to do seriously. Sometimes it pays off. So I would not be here without being encouraged for, I guess, decades at this point. I'm getting up there. So thank you. Thank you.
The book is Uncharted Territory. The author is Dalla Riva. Let's go.
Thank you. The Hoboken Beer Garden, and I figured I would play everybody out with what I think is the most underrated #1 hit of all time, Want Ads by Honeycomb. So you better enjoy it and tell your friends. Thank you.
I'm sorry for that. Hey, nice to see you, man. What's up, man? Nice to see you.
I don't want to get that.
Good job, Evan.
Hey, thank you.
Great job. Don't let him tell you that.
I deleted all the footage.
Right then, you can see that. Good job, Ed.
Yeah. Delete all the footage. He doesn't know.
Did you get everything?
I hope so. Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'll be outed.
First resort. No, you just come out of here.
Great job. Nice job.
Thank you.
Well done, man.
Thank you.
Great job, Sean.
I do it all for you. Hey, nice to see you.
You crushed it, Ed.
Hey, thank you, boss. Thank you. say hi to me when you came.
I had to run to the front. I didn't realize they had a picture. You were in the box table.
Yeah.
All right.
Where'd he go?
And I gotta take the good one. You're gonna write another one, Devin? You're such a